Mr. Speaker, yesterday, instead of committing the desperately needed additional $40 to $50 million for the children of Manitoba, for the basic human infrastructure, for the future of our province, for childcare and early childhood education, the Premier boasted that he's created 12,000 new childcare spaces.
What a boaster.
We know that as of the end of September, there were nearly 12,000 names on the province's central waiting list for childcare. I asked the government, is the Premier saying that he's now solved the problem, that as of today, these 12,000 people on the waiting list have places, there's absolutely no families on the waiting list? Is that what he's saying?
Mr. Speaker, that's not what we're saying. We're saying that since we've come to office, against votes against every budget we've ever had, including the member from River Heights, we have tripled the amount of funding going into daycare, and we've more than doubled the number of daycare spaces in the province. There are now 28,000 daycare spaces in Manitoba, 12,000 more than when the Leader of the Opposition was in government, and daycare spaces and daycare budgets were being cut. We've increased wages for daycare workers by 54%, and we've introduced the first ever pension plan for daycare workers in the province. And now, after having completed our plan, we are out consulting Manitobans again about how to further improve daycare in Manitoba. We have a growing economy. We have a younger population. We have people that want to come from around the world to live in Manitoba. They want to work in Manitoba. They want to raise a family in Manitoba. And we want a first-class daycare system to support them. That's something we've had in spite of all the votes against it by the members opposite, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, so there's still 12,000 children waiting because of poor budgeting and poor planning by this government.
Exactly.
Mr. Speaker, recruitment and retention for early childhood educators is certainly necessary to offer the child care spaces, but because of the short-sighted mismanagement by this NDP government, more than a third of Manitoba's child care centres have to operate with license exemptions because they can't get enough trained staff. Now, the Premier yesterday made claims of an expansion of the child care program in Manitoba. And I asked the Premier today, by what date is the proclaimed 56% increases in wages that he mentioned supposed to begin in his new plan? And is this increase in wages specifically for early childhood educators?
Mr. Speaker, the 54% increase in wages is already fully implemented. Salaries were less than $20,000 a year for a day care worker. They're now well over $32,000 a year, Mr. Speaker. And the member needs to know that we are doing a record amount of training. When I travel to Dauphin, I see the new Assiniboine Community College facility there. I see a new daycare center there, and I see young people from the region training to be daycare workers. When I go out into the schools, for the first time in the history of the province, new daycares are being built in every new school we build. And we're increasing daycare training at St. Boniface University, at Assiniboine Community College, at Red River Community College. And people that are working in daycare actually can work in daycare and get training at the same time, so they can have a salary while they're learning and advancing their skills to be good quality childcare workers. This is a plan that has made a very big difference in daycare. As a matter of fact, we call it early childhood learning centers now because there's a curriculum there that prepares young people for schools, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, there's still 12,000 children waiting because of poor budgeting and poor planning. Well, the Premier seems very eager to make claims of childcare and early childhood education expansion.
Boasting.
But what's happening is that there are more and more corporate chains moving in to fill in where a lack of spaces exists. With the government's current rigid subsidy policy, as opposed to Quebec's one system for all, two-income families in our province are seeing their incomes cut in half by having a parent stay at home or paying the equivalent to an extra mortgage or more than an annual university tuition on their daycare fees. I asked the Premier, what is this government's plan to provide truly accessible childcare without draining the pockets of Manitoba's middle-class families?
Well, we have a plan to make sure Manitobans have employment and good jobs. That's our plan. Secondly, Secondly, Mr. Speaker, we've kept our daycare fees among the lowest in the country.
Right.
And tuition fees at colleges and universities are the second or third lowest in the country, depending on what institution you have. And any student that graduates from a university program, including an early childhood learning program, and works in Manitoba will get 60% of their tuition back when they do that and make their home in Manitoba, Mr. Speaker. The leader of the opposition was part of a federal government that cut the national daycare program. We took that over. We funded it 100%. The ex-leader of the Liberal Party voted against every budget when we expanded daycare in Manitoba. Mr. Speaker, it's not bragging. It's not bragging to say we have doubled the amount of daycare spaces in the province. We've paid for it, and everybody opposite has voted against it.